Welcome to Season 5 of She Ventures. I am your host, Doria Lavanino. She Ventures is a podcast about women and their work and life pivots. I believe in the power of storytelling. I also believe that if you change one woman's life, you start to change a family or a community. Our mission is to elevate the diverse stories of everyday women in their worth. One promise, no mansplaining ever. Sit back, listen, and hit subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. You can find us at sheventurespodcast.com. Today's guest believes in education, not only a traditional four-year college, but beyond vocational and technical schools as well. She was the first in her family to attend college. She's earned her JD, and earlier in her career, she was counsel for several major financial services firms where she managed multi-billion-dollar public-private partnerships. She became increasingly active in college savings, otherwise known as 529 plans, and pivoted to advocating and educating about college savings full time. Her book, which I will hold up here, I don't normally do this, but I'm going to do it today because I have it, is, here we go, it is Route 529, A Parent's Guide to Saving for College and Career Training with 529 Plans. And I will tell you, it is a fabulous, actionable, and easy to understand guide with key takeaways at the end of each chapter, so you're sure to understand what the salient points are. Today, she is COO of Gift of College, and that is a marketplace for setting up 529 education plans between employers, individuals, families, friends. You can gift a 529 plan. And as her career has gone on, she's become increasingly philanthropic, and she's also an activator in what was formerly known as SheEO and is now called Corrales. The goal there is it's a global community of women to support women-led ventures, and their goal is to reach 1 million women activators, such as our guest today, and have a $1 billion perpetual fund, which would support 10,000 women-led ventures each year. And I love the hashtag that they've appropriated, hashtag radical generosity. Here to tell us about her journey, her pivot, how to prioritize savings, and why radical generosity matters is Patricia Roberts. Patricia, welcome to She Ventures.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here with you today.
I am delighted to have you on. And I realized when I was going through your intro, I'm like, my goodness, this is so long. But you have done a lot in your life. And where I wanted to start, when I was looking through your book, I noticed that, and it was touching to me, you dedicated it to your mother. And she was a single head of household, raising 5 people, I guess including herself. She was supporting herself as well. What lessons did you learn from her?
Wow. Thank you for mentioning my mom. She is near and dear to my heart, and boy, do I miss her. She passed away in 2016. Oh, what lessons did I learn from her? First of all, I want to mention she became a single head of household quite suddenly when my father suddenly disappeared. I was 10 years old. So this was not something that she had planned on. It was something that just happened quite suddenly.
Just disappeared.
He disappeared. And what she didn't know, as a homemaker at his insistence, and as somebody in the 1970s, not unlike most other women, without money or credit in her name, what she didn't know is that our home was about to go into foreclosure, our cars were about to be repossessed, and her life was going to, and our life was going to change radically all of a sudden. So what did I learn from that experience and from her? A lot. One thing that she taught all of us was that regardless of the relationships that we pursue in our adult life, to always, always, always have a vision into the finances of whatever the situation is, and to always have money in our own name. That would always keep us safe and empower us no matter how things turned out. So that's something that I definitely learned from her. Another thing that I learned from my mom is the value of faith. She had an unshakable faith in God, but she also coupled that with action. She taught us the power of faith plus action.
Unstoppable.
Oh my God, that's unstoppable. Yeah. So that stays with me to this day. And certainly, I learned so much from her generosity. I also learned about the importance of self care. She really didn't have the opportunity, once those circumstances changed, to take very good care of herself. And in fact, she was selfless in many ways. And I'm sure I developed some of those tendencies myself, as so many women do. But I do know that that worked to her detriment later in life because it affected her health. The stress of everything she had gone through and not taking time for herself. There were four of us. I was the youngest. My oldest sibling has a developmental disability, and then two in between. We were a lot to manage and to manage through change. I really did learn from her modeling of not taking very good care of herself and not taking time to focus on her own needs, even for a few minutes a day. I learned the importance of that, and I'm trying to do better myself.
It's the idea that self-care is not selfish, because I think we all internalize that to some degree. Yet, to your point, if we don't take care of ourselves, nothing else in our life works. And there are situations like the one with your mother, like it must have been incredibly difficult, especially with the sudden change. And I think I saw you tearing up there for a moment. I can imagine how much you admire her and how much she gave to you. And I just want to honor her.
Thank you. And she really encouraged each of us. You know, she cheered my brother on through the Special Olympics. Each of us, no matter what we were interested in, she was 100% with us. And I really appreciate that. I know how proud she was of each of us and how proud we were and are of her. And it just means so very much to me.
This is a hard transition to make, so I'm going to try to do it as delicately as possible. It kind of now makes even more sense to me why you were interested in financial services. And one of the other points in your book is that you and your husband were both first generation college students. And so when you started your education journey, at that point, what, if anything, did you know about saving for college?
I almost didn't start my education journey, and I want to make this point because it'll help you to understand why I appreciate higher education so much and why I want to help others prepare for it. My high school guidance counselor suggested I not go to college because of the fragile state of my family. My mother became very ill, and there were a lot of other complexities. She had a stroke. She was in intensive care on and off for many years. Things were very fragile. And I had stepped, even as the youngest child, for whatever reason, I had stepped into a leadership role in my family and was kind of keeping everything together. So my high school guidance counselor thought I should stick with the waitressing job that I had because I was doing well with it. I was working from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays at a local diner, and then some weeknights. And had I followed that suggestion, I think my life would have been entirely different. I mean, here I am, the high school newspaper editor. I turned out to be our commencement speaker. I'm in the Honor Society and student government, and I've got a strong suggestion that I not go to college. My mom would have nothing of it. She absolutely insisted, regardless of the financial situation, regardless of everything else going on, that I go, that we would figure it out. And we did. I had no financial preparation for that experience, but I went. And unlike most of the students at my university who were getting checks in the mail, I was sending checks home to help with my mom and that one brother in particular to help keep them afloat. I worked several jobs, but I made it work. In terms of financial preparation, there was none. I probably under applied to colleges because I really didn't know how capable I was or what schools would pursue me necessarily. I did stay in state in Pennsylvania. I had wanted to go to the Syracuse Newhouse School of Communication. I was interested in broadcast journalism, but New York did not have reciprocity with the state aid that I was eligible for in Pennsylvania, so I stayed in state. Did the best I could with the information I had, but no financial preparation whatsoever. And no financial preparation for law school that I eventually pursued, but I did that at night while working full time. So I tried to defray costs by pursuing that. It took 4 years at night, but I managed to do it. But I still, together with my husband, wound up with over $100,000 in student loan debt. And I think I mentioned that in the book. And that was part of our reason for being absolutely determined to do better for our child. We knew the financial stress that we were under for 20 years, paying that money back, and we did pay it back. I would say getting that letter from the bank that my loans were completely resolved. I had paid them off.
Such an amazing feeling.
Oh my God, I never got my diplomas framed, but I did have a strong desire to frame that letter. It meant so much to me. But I think this whole experience of almost not going to college and then incurring that debt, and then also I want to mention the many doors that those degrees have opened for me. I mean, it is perfectly clear to me that I could have never lifted myself out of that situation and lifted my family out of that situation without higher education. So I am a huge advocate. And years later, one of the proudest things I did was to buy a home for both my mom and brother to live in. And even though she's gone, he still lives there today. But the fact that I could do that, I don't think I could have accomplished that or have the impact that I'm having in my professional life had I stuck with the waitressing job.
I want to point out, because I think I hear this a lot with some of our guests, is what the outside thinks is right for us. And the fact that you were young, impressionable, this is a college guidance counselor, a high school guidance counselor, who's telling you, no, I think maybe you should stay at home. On the one hand, from a pragmatic perspective, I suppose I see where he or she was coming from. But thank goodness you had the wherewithal, and your mother, to your point, to say, no, like I have to do this now. And whatever it's going to be, it's going to be. But to your point also, right? If you're not prepared, there is huge debt that follows. So painting your early career in very broad strokes, you were an attorney who worked your way up to a managing director of a large financial services firm. What drew you to established firms early in your career? And I think I now know the second part of my question, which is why did you specialize in financial services?
So what drew me to large firms early in my career? I think just the need to work. I mean, in the 1980s, there were newspapers with help wanted sections. I don't think at that time, I know in the 70s they were listed by women and men, but regardless, I showed up in New York City in the 1980s with my newly minted philosophy and political science degree, and I found a job. I lived in the rectory of an Episcopal church in Manhattan. I rented a room and I shared a bathroom, sometimes with visiting monks, sometimes with others. But I had my $50 a week room and I looked for a job, and the first job I found happened to be in financial services. So there was no intention behind any of this. But why did financial services interest me? Certainly due to the financial backstory that I had and my wanting to be more secure and have a better understanding of financial matters. I mean, that certainly played into it. But I started with a small firm initially and then proceeded to Smith Barney, and I went to law school at night while working at Smith Barney. And I told no one that I was going to law school at night. I had inquired to see if it would be eligible for tuition reimbursement. It wasn't. It wasn't part of my legal work, was not part of my current job, and it would not likely lead to a degree so that nobody would reimburse it. And I thought, I'm just going to stay quiet about this. And I did it for 4 years at night. I got this degree. And then I ended up getting introduced to the general counsel of the parent company, who was Chuck Prince, Travelers Group. We became Citigroup. And then I stayed on and pursued a legal career, which is very unusual. Most first-year attorneys are not going straight in-house. They're working at law firms for years, getting that experience and then going in-house. But I had the opportunity to just be there. Great. And for 529 to fall on my lap, all the better. I loved getting that assignment. And I was asked, I think it was 1998. I think I was newly pregnant with my son who arrived in 1999. I was asked if I would take time to learn about Section 529 of the Internal Revenue Code. Citigroup wanted to get into that business as an asset manager or an investment manager because these funds need to be professionally managed by a firm, and my firm was interested. So I learned about 529. I probably was one of the earlier people to do so. And I helped Citi get involved in a couple of state programs. You probably know most states, except for Wyoming, have a 529 plan, and many states hire firms like Citi or Vanguard or Fidelity to manage the funds. And my firm got involved in the management of funds. And then I eventually I did move to the business side at Merrill Lynch eventually and worked on the same exact products. And I've been working on these products for 25 years now, 1998. It's incredible.
That whole experience, like it's a 360 of what goes on with 529.
Right. And to have used the plan too. And I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yes. So curious, you mentioned in the 90s, and financial services is still pretty male dominated, although it's improving. What was it like to be a woman in a male dominated industry?
I mean, I certainly felt grateful to be there, to have the opportunity to learn from both men and women. I can't say that I recall a whole lot of equity necessarily, but I always tried to work hard and get recognized in my own way. I probably recall instances of being asked if I was married, is my husband successful, things like that in the workplace that come up and seem a little bit odd. And I don't know who would possibly ask that, let alone a manager, but certainly did. I don't know. It was okay. I do remember, quite honestly, some women not being particularly supportive of other women.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, I do. I remember some of that. I will say back to the 1990s, I was selected at one point or other to be on like a women's diversity council or something. I mean, it sort of is disheartening that we were talking about equity and equality so many years ago. And although there's been some progress, it doesn't necessarily feel like there's been enough. I mean, we go all the way back that long ago. There were conversations around this and improvements that needed to be made. I have seen improvements through the years, but it's been a long time that we've been trying to get this right and make it more comfortable for both men and women to work together and to feel more at ease in the workplace. And I think there's miles to go before we sleep.
I think that is probably true. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't really feel that the diversity piece of it was as much considered in the 90s as it is today.
I think that's true. I think in financial services and even in the legal profession to some extent, at least at that time, I don't know that there was necessarily a broad pipeline of people that might even be interested in these type of jobs. I think when you don't see someone that looks like yourself or many people that look like yourself or people that you can relate to, I think you tend to not be interested in certain fields and maybe tend to gravitate towards others. I think that a much better job is being done. I happen to be involved with the Council of Urban Professionals, CUP, they call themselves. I was a 2012 fellow, and they're on a mission to help with both women and persons of color advance in the workplace, make connections, develop in many ways professionally and personally. Organizations like that, organizations like Elevate. I was just at an event last night where the focus was on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And belonging goes with the DEI. I hear there's a B now, which makes sense.
The acronyms are going to get so long at some
Getting
point.
bigger. There's an A for accessibility, that disability side of it too. Certainly, those features and those aspects of employment were not being focused on as much back at that time. Absolutely not. And we have made progress there, more to go.
Yes, on both. I agree. Last part of your early career, your resume shows that you were able to really climb the corporate ladder. And I know you were hungry. I know you were very talented and ambitious. Are there tips that you want to share with women today as to how to help them achieve career success if they decide they want to go into corporate America?
Sure. One tip I would have is to really think about what is unique about you and wherein your value lies. I think we often don't reflect on ourselves. We're not taught to take a careful look at ourselves. We're oftentimes outwardly focused. I'd spend a good amount of time thinking about yourself, your gifts, what interests you, what lights you up. Even in pursuing a career, what are the things that you feel you're great at, that you really like, or what are the things that you'd really like to learn about? And focus on those aspects as you're beginning to search for something. And then when you find something, really pay attention to how comfortable you are in the setting. Take a look at people who have progressed further, and to the extent you can get a sense of what their lives are like, think about, is that the kind of life you want to live? If it's in the legal profession and you're looking at women who have made partner, what's the quality of their life like? If you can get to know these people or observe from the outside, see if that's a life that you would even want as you're thinking of what you're aspiring to. I think that's really important. And I think whatever you do along the way, try to find your tribe within it and people that you can really get to know well and develop relationships with. I'm an introvert, so sometimes it's hard for me. I do make the effort, but sometimes it's hard to get to know people. But there are people who are very much worth knowing and who can really help you. They talk about having a personal board of directors, or people, it doesn't have to be that formal, but people you can talk to in a really honest and candid way who will give you feedback, who will give you guidance. Last night at Elevate, they talked about the importance of finding a sponsor. It doesn't have to be somebody formally, but somebody who will mention your name in a positive way or think of you when you're not in the room when promotional considerations are underway. To get to know people. And if you're just sitting at your desk, which I found I would do from time to time and just working really hard, keeping my head down, you're not making those connections and those relationships. So get out there a little bit, interact with others, talk to others, and there's nothing wrong with a bit of self-promotion. I mean, I think women, we often think we can't talk about ourselves, we can't mention our achievements. Keep track of your achievements and note them when appropriate. I mean, first of all, they make you feel great. I mean, sometimes we need a little dose of courage. I think I call it a badass list of things that I've accomplished, big and small, through the years. Taking a look back at that really can make a huge difference, really can give you the dose of energy that you need, the confidence that you need to pursue something that seems like it's going to be a little bit hard. So track your progress, be grateful along the way, get to know people, and get to know yourself. We need to do that and see what feels like a fit. And I assure you, it does all work out. When I look back, I can really connect the dots to how I got to where I'm at. And I wish that for many others. I think it often is the case. You can't see it at the time, though, when you're in it, right?
Right. Absolutely. It's times you feel a bit lost. It's like, where's my compass? But it always ends up working out the way that it's meant to. So your son, I loved this too. In your book, your son wrote a note and he mentions that, or in the book, you mentioned that you and your husband did not want him to endure the same stress that both of you did, which you mentioned, the $100,000 in debt. Is this when you decided personally to really focus? I know that you were doing it professionally, but I guess this was your first experience as a consumer of a 529 plan. How was that for you?
I always encourage people to start with their why. If they're thinking of any long-term goal or any objective, why are you doing it? Why were we doing it? We were absolutely intent on this child having a less financially stressful academic experience than we had. We knew what it felt like to not be prepared, and we wanted to do better for him. I will tell you, we were pretty early in our careers and married just a couple of years. We were living in a one-bedroom apartment. We knew we'd need a babysitter and have all sorts of additional expenses. We had no idea how we were going to save for this child. But we said we were going to find a way. We were going to find a way, and we did. We took a little bit out of each paycheck. I got an account open. Now, I'm grateful that I had the knowledge of 529 plans. Believe it or not, here these plans have been around almost 30 years now, and like 64% of Americans can't identify what they are. They don't know what they are. And even those who do know what they are don't know how they work, or they don't really understand them. So I was grateful I had the knowledge of this, and I decided together with my husband that we were going to both send money from our paycheck directly into this account. If we didn't see the money, if it didn't pass through our hands, we thought we'd have a better chance. And that's what we did. We put this on autopilot, very small amounts at first. And then as we evolved in our career, or if we had found money, maybe a tax return or a bonus or something, we started to put a bit more in. But I got to tell you, setting that up gave me just an immediate sense of relief that I was doing something to address the concern I had. And I know it's hard for people to get started, particularly in those early days of parenthood. Your eyes are blurry, you can't even think about it, or anywhere else along the way. Just seems like this insurmountable goal. How am I going to pay for this thing called higher education? But I will tell everyone, getting started feels good, and it's the most important step. And once you get started, you can then begin to save, and you can invite others to join you on your journey. I talk about that in the book.
What I love about what you're saying is you're leading through example, because one of my questions was going to be, and what I hear often is, I can't save for X, Y, or Z, in this case, a 529 plan, because I have a mortgage, I have to pay my nanny, I have to take care of my mother. And we all have financial obligations that are non-negotiable. But to hear you say, my husband and I, from the get-go, we didn't have as much in the beginning, but as we continued to work, we just did what we could at the very beginning and increased it. And there's so much to be said for that. I really appreciate that. So today, you're COO of Gift of College. So I was hoping you could tell our audience, how does the company help with 529 plans? And I think probably give a definition of both 529, and I did not know that there was something called a 529 ABLE plan. So take it away.
Wow. Okay. So let's see. A quick definition of 529 plans. These are named after Section 529 of the Internal Revenue Code, which helped to create them. These are special accounts that allow U.S. residents and taxpayers to save for a particular purpose. That particular purpose is higher education, and to save in a tax-advantaged way. What does that mean? What it means is when you contribute funds or deposit funds into a 529 plan and they grow in value, the earnings on these plans are not taxed as they grow. Unlike if you have a bank savings account or other forms of investments, you're probably getting a tax statement at year end that shows you owe tax on the earnings. 529 plans are growing tax deferred. You're not paying tax. And in fact, when you withdraw the funds and use them for a wide range of educational expenses, those earnings are never taxed. So less tax can mean more money for higher education. And I do want to stress these plans are not just for college. Many people, because they're called college savings plans, assume they're for a traditional four-year college. You can use them for two-year, four-year, trade and technical school, graduate and professional studies, even certain registered apprenticeships. They really have been made more broad in terms of their use these days.
Another thing I just wanted to chime in that I just recently learned is that if you set up the 529 plan, if for whatever reason something happens to your beneficiary or you don't want to give it to them for, I don't know what the reason would be, you can then take it, right, and use it yourself.
That's exactly right. So there is a tremendous amount of flexibility built into 529 college savings plans. Not only can they be used for a wide range of educational experiences, from trade and technical school to registered apprenticeships to two-year, four-year college, graduate, and professional studies, these plans, if they are not needed in part or in full for the original beneficiary, meaning the future student for whom you were saving, if they're not needed by that individual, first of all, the funds are always yours as the account owner. Nothing is lost. There's some myth around something's gonna be lost if the original child doesn't go. No, the funds belong to you. And if you happen to be a member of the family of that original beneficiary, you don't need to be. You could be a friend of the family who sets up an account, but oftentimes it's a parent or grandparent who does. You can use the funds for yourself. A member of the family can use the funds of the original beneficiary. That could be a parent. You could be the parent and use it for yourself. You could use it for another sibling of that child who didn't need it. You could use it for a cousin, an aunt or uncle. It's a very broad range of people that can use it. And if the student didn't need the money because they got a scholarship, you can withdraw the funds, and you do have to pay tax on the earnings because remember, you weren't paying tax as they grew in value, fair enough. But if the student doesn't need the funds because they received a scholarship, because they became disabled, or God forbid, because they passed away, there's never a penalty associated with any of this. You just need to pay the tax on the earnings that you didn't pay as the account was growing in value. So as the account owner, you always have access to the funds. You can switch it to another person. You can use it for yourself. You can save it for your child's children someday if you've got a little bit left over. There's no time limit. So there's not so much to worry about in terms of what if the child doesn't need it. And starting in 2024, details still need to be worked out. You can, under certain circumstances, roll the funds to a Roth IRA for the beneficiary, for the account beneficiary. That's interesting too.
That is really. My question was, is there an amount? Is there a limitation on the amount that you can put into 529?
This varies by state, but most of the 529 plans have a maximum contribution or balance limit. Some base it based on how much you put in, others base it on how much it grows to, but it's often in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some of the plans go all the way up to over $500,000. Some of them are $300,000 or $400,000. You can put a large amount in the 529 plan. And what's great as well, on the other end of it, you can put a small amount in the 529 plan. One of the myths is it takes a lot of money to get started, or you have to contribute a lot. Not true. Many of the state plans, including the one where I think you and I both live, New York, allows you to get started with under $25. I think in New York, you can get started with as little as $1 or $5. So many states are in that $25 range to get started. That's not too much money, not too much of a barrier of entry, and a great place to begin. Getting started is what matters most.
Exactly. And to your point, I think when I created my 529 plans for my children, it was different. There was a lot of paperwork. It was a little bit more involved. And now, you can go online and do it in 10 minutes, basically, right? Does it work on your platform?
our platform at Gift of College, first of all, Gift of College has a first of its kind gift card that can be given to anyone as a contribution to their 529 account. This is plan agnostic. It can go into any account. I could know nothing about, you've daughters, right? Do you have daughters?
Yeah, I have 2 daughters, yes.
Okay. I could know nothing about whether you do or don't have an account for your daughter, whether you're in a particular plan, but for one of their birthdays or perhaps as a, I don't know, baby shower gift for you or someone else, I could give a gift card, $25 to $200, and you as the recipient through Gift of College could redeem it into your plan of choice. So we have these gift cards. They are sold at CVS across the US and online. I give these gifts all the time. And I got to tell you, they're head turners at baby showers and birthday parties when people are getting a lot of traditional gifts, which are needed, some of them not so much, not so sure about the diaper genie and some of this other stuff. Nothing against that. But as the more traditional gifts and the $60 little outfits that they're going to grow out of in 2 days are given, I show up with a gift card for a college savings account. People are like, whoa, what's that? Right? So, and now I, of course, now that I've written my book, I couple it with my book. But these gift cards can be given for any occasion for a child of any age. So that's foundational for Gift of College. It's something we have. We sell them online as well. A lot of employers now are giving these for parents who have expand the size of their family. Instead of a silver spoon or...
That's what I got at Condé Nast. I got a silver spoon from Tiffany and Company. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah. One of my clients at Gift of College, and I will tell you, we work with employers, is giving $1,000 gift card and my book to any employee who expands the size of their family. And I think that's a meaningful gift. That's a gift of financial wellness. So we've got the gift cards, and then we have a platform which employers can use to educate their employees about 529 college savings plans and 529 ABLE plans, which are sort of the equivalent that can be used for disability related expenses. These are accounts that were created for individuals to use to save for a disabled person's future, whatever that future may be. The funds in a 529 ABLE account can be used for education if they're needed for that purpose, but they can be used for many other expenses as well, like assistive technology, transportation, housing, anything that supports the health and well-being of a disabled individual. And I love those accounts. So our platform educates from a financial wellness perspective employees about the existence and usefulness of 529 college savings and ABLE accounts. And then our platform also allows employers to offer payroll deduction, exactly what I did 23 years ago when I was a new mom.
You don't spend it.
Right. Payroll deduction to any 529 plan. What's interesting about our platform is it works for any plan. So employers in multiple states with employees in multiple states don't know which plan to offer their employees. So what's great about our platform is it's open architecture. The employer, the benefits team doesn't have to pick the New York plan over the New Jersey plan over the Connecticut plan. They just offer our valuable education and the employee selects for themselves. And our platform also works for student loan repayment assistance. So the employer can match contributions to 529 college savings, match to ABLE accounts, or contribute to an employee's student loan. That is what Gift of College offers in the workplace. And that's where I spend a lot of my time. And it's the perfect role for me because this is exactly how I save for my own child. And I can speak from the heart. And now I don't need to save for my child anymore. In fact, he's already gotten his graduate degree as well, but I'm saving for my brother's future in an ABLE account through work. And my employer, Gift of College, matches $1,000 into my brother's ABLE account each year. And I really appreciate that. So when I talk to employers, I sort of eat the cooking. I can say, this is the way I save for my son. This is the way I'm saving for my brother. This is how my employer is helping me. And it means a lot. It really does mean a lot.
To reflect back what I think I've understood, just like a 401k where employers match a certain amount, you enable an option for employers to match a certain amount in a 529 or a 529 ABLE plan. Is that right?
That is exactly right. That is exactly right. And employers can match what employees are contributing themselves, or they can do a one-time contribution. Employers design it however they want. And we have employers who are doing everything from $100 when an employee opens an account, just as an incentive to get them to do it. And that's it. They offer the valuable education and they offer that. And then we have employers who are matching $100 a month and in some cases even more. And then we have employers who are giving a 529 contribution when a baby is born or adopted into a family, which I think is great as well, or a combination of all of it. It's all good. I love it. I love it.
I did have a question about the ABLE plan. I know it's for disabled people. Does that also include neurodivergent students? Because that's become an increasingly common, I guess it is considered a disability, right? If you have ADD, if you have executive processing issues, do they have to be physical disabilities?
I will explain the criteria for ABLE, but I do want to mention first that the 529 College Savings Plan can be used to pay for special needs services for beneficiaries. I just want you to know that with respect to 529, because I didn't mention that. With the ABLE plan, the requirements there is that the disability needs to be significant. It needs to have developed before the age of 26. And the individual needs to meet certain criteria that would make them eligible for SSI, or I believe SSDI, or they need a medical certification saying they meet these type of requirements. So it's got to be a pretty significant disability, and it needs to have developed before the age of 26. That's how that legislation was able to get passed through. The age limit's going to be increased eventually, which is great. Legislation just was passed in that regard because that will help veterans and others who may have developed a disability later in life, or people who've been in an accident or something like that. But the current rules are under 26 and significant disability. So I guess it would depend on the type of neurodivergent situation and how significant.
Okay. I just asked because I know that that's a very common criteria or condition that I have come across recently. And so I was just curious how that would fit in. But either way, it doesn't really matter in the sense that if you want to do a 529, there are no additional benefits to doing a 529 ABLE plan, correct? They're both the same or no?
They're similar in scope. What you can contribute to an ABLE plan is somewhat less overall. And there are some limitations. Like once you hit $100,000 in the ABLE account, it could potentially impact Medicaid and reduce your benefits in that regard. But what's great about ABLE, and I didn't mention it, is these accounts for the first time ever are allowing persons with disabilities who receive these benefits like SSI and Medicaid to save money in their own name. Up until ABLE came about 6 or 8 years ago, individuals like my brother could never have more than $2,000 in their name because it would impact their benefits. And nobody, trust me, if you're disabled and you've gotten these benefits that are so important to your existence, you don't want to jeopardize them. So for years, my brother was keeping money in a small cardboard box rather than in the bank because he couldn't have money in the bank. And this is the theme across the US with people with all sorts of disabilities. But now with ABLE accounts, they can have money in their own name. My brother has his first debit card. He feels more financially empowered. He's learning about expenditures. He's excited about what he can do with his own money, and he doesn't have to worry that his medical assistance is going to be impacted. So they can save up to $100,000, I think, and not have an impact on SSI, which is a significant amount. But with the 529s, I was mentioning it could be up to 500,000 and such. Yeah. So there are some differences.
How does the platform vet 529 plans? Is there a criteria? I'm just thinking like how Morningstar vets, I don't know, mutual funds. Is there a similar way in which 529 plans are vetted?
Morningstar, by the way, also vets 529 plans, as does a website called savingforcollege.com. They give five, not 5-star, but 5 cap, the mortarboard ratings to 529 plans in different categories. That's worth taking a look. We don't vet the 529 plans. We make all plans available through our platform. We have a really objective search tool that's not comparing and contrasting or rating plans. We use this from a firm called Invite Education. They do really terrific research about getting all the facts straight on the 529 plans. And we have it on our site for people to choose for themselves. We're not giving investment advice. We're not vetting the plans. We're making certain that all plans are available and trusting that people are doing their own research in that regard. We do have a financial representative available through our site at no cost. If somebody, a third party, if somebody wanted to ask an opinion or get some advice and guidance, but we do not offer that. We offer access to all plans, and we think that is what's most appropriate.
That is wonderful. I'm so excited just thinking about it. What do you think is the most common misconception that you hear about 529 or college saving plans, assuming people even know what they are?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions about 529 plans is that they're just for college, and that people don't understand that they can be used for a much wider range of post-secondary education expenses. And in fact, they can also now be used for K-12 tuition only.
Yes.
And that's something that people definitely don't know. I think the other misconception is that the beneficiary has to be the child of the account owner. That's not the case. Many, many grandparents open accounts for an individual who they love, a grandchild who they love. Aunts and uncles can do it. Friends and others can do the same. It doesn't have to be a parent. People also think they need to invest in their home state plan. And while it's a great idea and probably appropriate to check your home state plan, there may be benefits available to you that are unique based on your residency. You don't have to invest in your home state plan, or you can put a certain amount in your home state plan. And if you like another plan, you've read about them, you've seen a rating of some sort, and you're wondering about, could I be in another plan? Yes, you can be in another plan as well. So no need to feel you have to be constrained with a particular state plan. Another misconception is that you have to go to college in a particular state to use the plan. That's also not true. 529 college savings plans can be used broadly across the US and across the world in many instances. So no constraints there as well. Yeah. And then I'm trying to think of any other misconceptions. I think those are the biggest ones. And along the lines of somehow you're going to lose the money if the child doesn't go to college. No, there's a lot of flexibility there. Many ways you can use that money, and you will never lose it as the account owner. I think also what people don't understand, which I think is important to understand, is that the account owner is always in control of the account. The child, unlike an UGMA or UPMA account or trust account, where the child has access to the money, it's theirs when they're 18 or 21, depending on state law. 529 is not the case. If your child's going in a direction that you're not comfortable with, or the account beneficiary, it happens. That money is not theirs. They can't get access to it. You've got control. And should you ever need it for yourself, I mean, we know in the current marketplace, or people's desires change personally as adults, you might want to use some of that money for yourself, for retooling your career, or to pursue something out of need or out of desire. You can do that. The money is yours. So I think that's important, and people don't understand that.
These are all great points. Wrapping up, I wanted to ask, of course, I'm going to ask where listeners can find out more about you and about your book and about Gift of College. But I wanted to ask before that, what are 3 skills from your years in corporate jobs that helps you acclimate to more of an entrepreneurial role, I would say, right, where you are today?
3 skills from the bigger firms that help me in my smaller firm today. One is setting critical few objectives, making sure that I understand with certainty what are the most critical few objectives that I need to be pursuing, and to keep that in mind when so many other tasks and requests come my way, and to sort of manage to that. That is one skill. Another skill is, I would say, time management. I am pretty good at blocking out time and staying extremely focused on what needs to be accomplished, and not checking emails every few minutes or getting distracted with phone calls and other things. I try to be truly present with what I am working on, and that seems to turn out well. This multitasking, I've learned that, doesn't always work. And then the other skill I would say I learned in larger organizations is the power of collaboration. We cannot go it alone. We all bring different skills and different perspectives to whatever we're working on, and really leveraging others as thought partners and getting their input, and getting it early on if they happen to be an ultimate decision maker on it. Getting buy-in early on can be extremely helpful. So those are three among the many, many things I learned while working in larger settings.
It's really helpful. And I ask you this question because you're a COO, and so you're involved in a lot of the processes and the hierarchy of decision making. And I've spoken to many entrepreneurs and no entrepreneurs who are very distracted by what's termed shiny object syndrome. And that can really be debilitating, not only to the business, but to your colleagues and to yourself. And so I admire your ability to do that. So where can listeners learn more about you? I'll put it up again, your book, gift cards, and gift of college.
Well, let's see here. I am probably most active on LinkedIn. So if you look up Patricia Roberts and Gift of College, you will find me there on LinkedIn. Gift of College's website is giftofcollege.com. So giftofcollege.com. I'm also somewhat active on Instagram and Facebook at Route529Mom. So ROUTE 529 Mom. And my book, Route 529, A Parent's Guide to Saving for College, is available on Amazon and at other booksellers as well.
Patricia, thank you so much for coming on She Ventures today. It's really been inspirational.
I have loved the experience, and thank you for having me.
You've been listening to She Ventures. Like what you heard? You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe and sign up for our newsletter so you never miss a show.